Andrew and Magda, welcome to this little conversation about your startup. Tell me about yourself first. Andrew, who are you? Where do you come from? Where are you going?
Yeah. Good questions. Yeah, I'm Andrew Burt. I'm a dad of two, Australian, and most of my career I've been an entrepreneur. So kind of the first ever job I had out of university was working in commercialization for the university, and just got an interest in new ideas and new projects and spin outs and creating IP and launching new businesses. Through that, as more of an entrepreneur, I would say, in those days. You're doing it. You're on a salary. You have a boss. You have a team, and you're commercializing other people's IP. And so it was a great experience in terms of going through all the steps, but then increasingly kind of thought, well, I'd rather do this for myself and on my own projects and really and being in control of your own destiny, I guess, rather than taking it through the fairly bureaucratic university process that we had. And started out my first venture at the time. I was really interested in the technology space, so wanted to build. But didn't have a particular idea that I wanted to focus on. So set up like an early stage marketing consultancy that eventually became an accelerator. It was the second accelerator in Australia, and funded 30 odd startups over a 4-year period, and then ended up becoming a founder. And GoSave's kind of the third hardware company I founded in the last 7 years. We can go into a bit more detail about each one, but that's probably the 30,000 foot overview.
Good, great. What about you, Magda?
So my name is Magda Michorny, and I originally come from Poland, but been living pretty much around the world. After my short corporate career in marketing, I got involved in startups. Once I moved to the Netherlands, and it was quite a amazing ride. One of the first startups that I got involved with was Travis the Translator, which is one of the first AI-powered pocket translators. And we've launched from the idea basically and Indiegogo to to commercialization. We made 15 million in 1 year in revenue. And then, from this, my life took me to, other ventures as well. And finally, last year, I ended up in Techstars Accelerator in Berlin, where I've been placed for 4 months with one of my teams. And I've met Andrew there. We were sitting next to each other. And fast forward 6 months, we are working together right now on GoSave in Australia, which is, an amazing experience, and especially seeing now what's happening, with the emergence of cashless society and people really placing a lot of value on financial literacy. This is the product that is really in demand, and you can see that people want to build healthy financial habits from the very early age of their kids. And this is a product that we found that, enables both parents and kids to work together to build those healthy habits and build for the better future for both.
So I was hoping you to tell more about yourself before the product, but
oh, sorry. Well, I can dive deeper. So I've been involved mostly, in marketing and PR. I discovered that my passion is really building the products and getting people excited about the ideas and things we are launching on the market.
Awesome.
And so exactly. So combining technology with consumer products is something that I really place a lot of value on, because you can create an amazing technology that can really add value and serve people around the world. What else? I graduated from a bunch of universities, but finally discovered that a great team is a key to success, and your personal drive. So no matter how many degrees you have, one of the most important things is to actually be in a supportive environment and have this team that can push great ideas and ventures forward. yeah, I think, I'm really passionate about just being surrounded by inspiring people and moving around. I guess this is what keeps us all going. Yeah.
Awesome.
And maybe I can add that I'm 31, just turned 31 years old. And I hope that the career is only starting for me.
Great. So, Andrew, you mentioned that you've done this is your third startup, and I guess they were all hardware startups. Why is that?
Um, good. That's a good question. So initially, obviously doing marketing, and then funding a whole bunch of companies through the accelerator. I ended up working with all kinds of different startups over the years. So yeah, whether it be B2B SaaS companies or consumer SaaS, or it was really mostly around software and software as a service. And then it was 2012, and one of the projects we had going through our accelerator was a hardware project called LifeX. And at the time, it was really just a back of the envelope idea. The main founder, Phil, basically said to me, "Look, I'm going to put a Wi-Fi chip in a light bulb and put it on Kickstarter." And it was not much more than that at that point in time. And we got talking about it, and the more we looked into it, we kind of thought, gee, like, software controlled lighting is really interesting. And this was kind of, just as Nest and a lot of these smart home companies were really taking off. And we put LifeX, we prototyped it, we got it ready for Kickstarter. We launched in September 2012. And within 3 days, we'd raised $1.3 million worth of sales on Kickstarter. And it was trending up to well over $10 million in sales. It would have been in the first kind of 10 or 12 days. But we ended up capping the campaign because the demand was just crazy. And a bit of a long story short, we actually got told off by Kickstarter because they had a bit of negative press at the time saying, Pebble and Ouya and all these products that were getting popular on Kickstarter hadn't shipped at that point in time. So we were kind of roped into that, and there was a little bit of controversy at the time. But we capped the campaign, built the product, and then eventually raised a Series A with Sequoia Capital in 2014 for that company, and then sold the company entirely in 2019 to an Australian listed firm. So kind of went through that full loop of back of the envelope idea to production to retail to Series A and then an exit. And I think over the way, you pick up all these lessons, like, you learn how to make a product, and you learn how to deal with manufacturing in China, and you learn how to sell into retail, and you pick up those skills and networks, and that was it, kind of thing. I've always kind of loved hardware ever since. And most of the ideas I've had in the last few years have been hardware. But GoSave is slightly different in that we do have a hardware product, but primarily we're working with banks and other large fintechs to really use GoSave as a teaching tool for kids. So it's taken us on a different journey. I think we thought it was a consumer electronics company at the very start, and we've realised it is a real fintech company, and it's all about integrating with key partners and then taking it to market together.
Okay, interesting. So, my questions are to both of you now, whoever can pick up. So you said that partnerships have become more critical to this now, instead of, probably a retail distribution model. So what sort of partners are you working with right
So we primarily work with banks and credit unions, and typically they're retail banks that have been around a long period of time, but that see the threat of challenger banks coming into the market. And we basically offer them a way to quickly create a proposition for kids and for the parents that centers around the piggy bank, but also, like a really nice app that the parents use to save for the kids, and that gives them reminders and lets them set chores and kind of manage that whole pocket money experience. So we can help a bank kind of offer this neobank-like experience with a cool tech product that the kids like, and we can spin that up for them in months as opposed to kind of years of development that they would otherwise have to do themselves.
Okay, great. And what's your revenue model in this? Do you charge the bank, or do you charge the customer, or? How does it work?
Yeah, we tend to. It does vary case by case, but primarily it's about we offer the service to the bank in country by country, so they effectively get exclusivity in their region for a period of time, and then our contracts. It's usually around US and 1 million is the typical kind of entry point, and that enables them to have 10,000 units of the product. It enables us to do the integration, so we get their accounts showing up on the piggy bank. So if you've got an account with a particular bank, you'll be able to sync the two, so the kids can see. If you put $80 in that account, the kid can see $80 on the piggy bank. Mm-hmm. And then also the marketing as well. A lot of these banks, they've got their own customers, but they want to use a product like GoSave as customer acquisition. So we get in and help with the brand strategy and the go-to-market and the customer fulfillment and delivery, and kind of trying to make the process as seamless as possible. So a bank can concentrate on what they do, and we can manage the customer experience for the parents and the kids.
Okay. So, considering that you're taking this approach, what's the opportunity and the market size you're looking at?
Yeah, it's almost every country has a bank that would want to dominate this sector, because traditionally in Australia there's a bank called Commonwealth Bank who have had a savings program for kids and been the market leader over an 80-year period, they think, and the estimates are that's worth over $20 billion to the bank each year in terms of new customers, in terms of customer loyalty. Something like 80% of the kids that sign up to a Commonwealth Bank account because of this youth program end up sticking with the bank, right well until their 30s and beyond. So attracting that segment early and building brand loyalty and trust and creating a great experience between the brand and the kid and parents is really valuable to the bank. So we've kind of had inquiries from well over 30 countries now, and ideally expansion for us is working in 20 to 30 countries, having the product sold into each of those markets through the channel partners, and then we might revisit our consumer offering. But yeah, I think the B2B2C certainly takes us into the 20 to 30 million recurring, and then we have to think more creatively, I think, how we build the business out from there.
So do banks pay for the product, or does the customer pay for the product?
The banks, yeah. We can split it a few ways, but primarily the bank pays for it and they give it away as a loyalty tool. Mm-hmm. They can also subsidize it. So they might say, look, we're not going to pay for the entire unit. We don't want to give it away, but we'll make the customer pay $49 and we'll pay the other $100. So it can be a sliding scale on how much the customer pays and how much the bank pays. The best model is the bank giving it away. Like it creates the least friction for the customer, and they're really grateful for it and excited to get it. That's my preferred method. But but each bank has their own strategy and their own way of looking at it. So we don't prescribe too strictly how they do it, but we certainly share the experience of what we learn from each client.
Yeah, I think it's important to add that we, as Andrew said, we want to create the seamless experience and kind of embed the product into the customer journey the bank already has. That's why, when we start collaborating with a bank, we first try to understand what's their customer journey, and then try to see, how the piggy bank, the GoSave piggy bank could fit into it in the best way.
Yeah. Okay. So, what sort of traction have you had? What sort of, users, numbers, anything you can share?
Yeah, so still quite early days, to be honest. Like we've only had the product fully in market since December last year. Okay. We're a Kickstarter project, and then we've delivered all our Kickstarter orders, and then we've kind of only shifted to this B2B2C model in Q4 last year, and then only really got serious about the integrations really in this year. So obviously the market's tricky at the moment, given everything that's going on. Banks are worried about liquidity, and they've all the whole world's in a bit of a state of flux. So but even despite that, yeah, a lot of the projects and the pilots that we're doing, some have been affected, but others are just forging ahead. And that's our general philosophy with it too. We've got fairly modest goals at this point. Really, we want to launch in Australia, the UK, and the US. Sorry, cars just going past as I sit outside. And really just launch those three countries first with a key partner, and then expand the proposition out from there.
So you said you ran a Kickstarter campaign, and if it's not integrated with a bank, then how does it work? Is that a different experience?
It is, yes. So we can sell the product anywhere around the world, but it won't come with an account unless it's provided directly by a bank. At this stage, we've looked into building our own debit card and linking that to the product and things. There's merit in doing that, but yeah, we can sell it internationally, and people do buy it through the website in all kinds of countries. It basically acts like an IOU between the parent and the kid. There's no real banking happening, but the parent can still transfer pocket money, chores, goals. They still appear on the piggy bank screen, and the kid still sees, I've got $80 in my account, and effectively that's the bank of mum and dad.
Okay, awesome. So I understand that on the enterprise side you're looking at partnerships, but on the consumer side, you don't see a big opportunity there in terms of people actually buying the piggy bank and using it to train their kids and gamifying that experience. And
there definitely is. Kickstarter, when we first thought about the business, we thought about it as, vast majority would be direct to consumer. And we launched the Kickstarter that way, and geared it really around that consumer experience. But it's a fairly slow road to growth. So we definitely sell units directly through our website. But without an integration with a bank, the experience is good, but it's certainly a lot better when you make it about real money and you have a channel partner behind you, and it suddenly goes from like playing with monopoly money to playing with real money. So for us, it improves the value proposition to work with a bank, but also the whole economics and the channels stand up a lot better for us. So we've ended up spending vast majority of our time on the B2B2C. We still sell B2C, but we're just not putting many resources behind the marketing and pushing that too heavily at this stage.
And I guess when you have a key partner on board, then you could also be co-marketing the product as a consumer product as well, because you have a bank on board and the account is connected and they're selling it. They're either giving it free or selling it, and then you're also could be potentially marketing it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like we've talked about that. Like we could have the product at retail, and when you open our product, you could link through to that particular bank. So you buy the piggy bank, you take it home, and then if you open an account with this particular bank that we're working with, they'll rebate you the cost of the product for creating the account. So yeah, you can definitely sell it independently. We haven't created any of those links yet, but yeah, that's certainly something that we're exploring.
So how are you currently funding this, and what are your plans for from a money perspective?
So initially we self-funded. Myself and Jason kind of did the first 100K just to really get it going and build the prototype and get it to market. And then we've raised a modest seed round, or I'd almost call it a pre-seed round, like with Techstars and another effectively $200,000 that came in at the same time. So we've only raised $340K US in total. So it's still a fairly small amount that we've taken, but we haven't diluted much at all. So this was some of the key lessons from my last company. Even it was great working with big firms like Sequoia, but you end up fairly diluted as a founder by the time you do a Series A and bridge rounds and whatever else you need to do. So we thought with GoSave, we've been modest with the funding to this point, but we still retain really large share. The board is just still myself and Jason, and so the team is small and quite nimble. But eventually, we'll need to raise more. But we want to be able to do it when we've kind of got these 3 countries, US, UK, Australia, all working and all humming along. And that puts us in a better position to raise at more favourable terms and set it up in a way that I think that we retain control. I think, and I was exactly like this too. Like all founders in the early days, they optimize for, let's raise as much money as possible on the best terms. But really, ultimately, if you end up giving away too much and you lose control, you're not really an entrepreneur anymore. You're an employee that works for the board, and your interests don't always exactly align. So I think, an important lesson for me with LifeX was, the company succeeds, but you personally want to be able to succeed along with that company. You don't want to be the company to succeed and you not to make as much, or to be rewarded and compensated like you perhaps should have been because you've made some bad board decisions and haven't structured it in a favourable way. So we're being a bit patient with the LifeX capital raise, but that might slow us down a bit. But at the same time, we're much more in control, and it really is our company. It's not a company owned by a consortium of investors.
So, I like to ask that question for the benefit of other founders. That from your experience of diluting equity too fast, what was other than the fact that you want to continue being more in control, what was the main learning in terms of how people should negotiate things and how they should take that process forward?
Yeah, it's always such a fine balance because you always want to raise enough to keep the company afloat, to be able to pay your team members and to be able to grow quickly enough that you don't get swamped by competitors. So, you've got to take all that into consideration, and the importance of raising as an early stage company. If you don't have clear visibility on revenue, or if it's going to take a while to break even, then you do certainly want to structure it in a way where you don't take too much and you don't give away too much control early.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like when we talk about a minimum viable product, I always think the same with funding as well. What's the minimum amount that you need to get it to a point where you can raise a lot more, but at good terms, and really working backwards from there. So what's the milestone might be, all right, we want to be in market and we want to have that early traction. How much do we really need to raise to get there versus let's raise as much as we can now, which potentially leaves you more vulnerable down the track.
Okay, good. So you mentioned earlier that you're running an accelerator before becoming a full-time founder, and how was that experience for you?
Yeah, it was really good. It was quite early days in the accelerator world. It was back we started in 2010. We started raising the fund in 2010, and we launched the first program in 2011. So yeah, it's 9 years ago now. And having been through Techstars as well with GoSave, comparing Techstars to, I think, comparing how we ran our small accelerator 9 years ago, it's just worlds apart. Like, it's a real industry now, accelerators. Techstars is such a well-oiled machine. I think it's got 100 odd programs around the world, maybe 10,000 odd staff. Actually, maybe that's not quite right, but just an incredibly well-run operation. And we were 3 people and a small $1 million fund, and we were learning on the job. So it's kind of fascinating to compare like how we did it to how the big operations do it now. But I think that organic process too was great because we're working very closely with the founders, and there's a lot of opportunities in those days too. Like, launching $1 million Kickstarter campaign was a hell of a lot easier in 2012 than it is in 2020. So we were kind of a small group, but it's been it was quite a successful set of companies that came out of the group overall, and the fund's basically returned investor capital now, and there's still quite a few that are doing good things many years on. So it was definitely a great experience. And for me, it taught me that it actually made me think I'd much rather be a founder than running a program. But running a program it's fun, and the social side is great, and and you're helping entrepreneurs. Like, you have a real purpose day to day, which I really enjoyed. But ultimately, you're coaching rather than playing. And I think in the early part of your career, you want to get as much operational experience as possible, and really build a successful company, because that's the way, the best way to help another entrepreneur is to be a successful entrepreneur yourself, and have the luxury of being able to give back, both in capital, but also experience and time. So I think for me, I almost founded the accelerator almost too early in my career, where perhaps never felt like I had the runs on the board to really add massive value to the companies.
I think you disconnected. So, Magda, tell me, how's your experience been working with GoSave? And you've been involved since the last 6 months?
Yes, so with GoSave, it was quite, yeah. So I said that, we met, I've been involved in startups for 4 years now. My last venture, I got lucky, my team, we got accepted to accelerator in Techstars Accelerator in Berlin. And yeah, we've been sitting next to each other with Andrew and always joking, it would be great to be working together at some point. And I also had plans to move from Europe to Australia. And then, it's not even been 6 months. It's been around 3 months we've been working together.
Okay.
And yeah, it's been great. I was always working with very small teams. And I find that, it's really essential to have people that you get along with, not only on a professional level, but also on a private level. Because, for example, the first startup that I was involved with, Travis the Translator, very successful. We also started a small team, but then we started to scale. And the team that we were, 4 of us, hey, maybe I'm going to finish the point. So, the team scaled from 4 people to basically 20 people in around 6 months. And we started losing this connection between internally between team members, and it kind of lost, this fun and drive that we had in working together. So yeah, for me overall, it's early days as well, but but so far it's been great, and we have great things ahead. We are now starting to really develop the strategy for our B2B partnerships. So there's a lot of work to do on this side. So we'll be seeing, a lot in this space. At the same time, we are fundraising. So had a lot of opportunities as well to talk with investors. So we are, running a few very critical and essential things for the startup, for the business, that combined will take us further. And
Great.
yeah.
So, question to both: are you guys trying doing your fundraising in Australia or outside Australia as well?
So yeah, so basically we. Sorry.
No, you go,
go. Yeah, so I would say.
Oh no, you go. Sorry, I dropped.
So I would say, we are a little bit geography agnostic, but as we are an US registered startup with subsidiary in Australia, we place a lot of value on those 2 geographies, and investors coming from US or Australia. I've also learned from my other ventures that usually it's more convenient for the startup founder and for the investor as well to be geographically close to each other, or at least within the same tax system. So yeah, I would say that we are focusing on the United States and Australia. Alternatively, on the UK, because we can see that the fintech space is very, very strong there, and there is a lot of interest coming from the UK. But other than that, I think answer. Do you want to add anything, Andrew?
Sorry, I was unmuting myself. No, that's kind of spot on. Yeah, it's either US or Australia. I think there's definitely more fintech potential investment out of the US and even the UK too. That there is a little bit of fintech investment in Australia, and there is increasingly actually more and more. But early stage fintech, there's only really one bank in Australia that I'm aware of that does a lot in that space. Yeah, just the US have just got so many more opportunities, and so I think more likely it will be the US with some participation from Australia. And what often happens with Australian ventures too, you end up raising, and we did this with LifeX, you raise money from Sequoia Capital, and then Australian investors want to follow that investment. So yeah, I think it's just the nature of the market in Australia. There certainly are leads, but they do like signal that some validation from a market like the US.
Your voice is breaking up, Andrew.
Sorry, my
it's better now.
Power is now back on at home, and the phone jumped on the Wi-Fi, but the Wi-Fi is not on the internet. Anyway,
You're all working in technology, but this always happens.
Exactly. These are the challenges of lockdown and not being in an office. But anyway,
PowerPoint and demos have been failing everybody now. Zoom is failing. So, and tell us a little bit about the Australian ecosystem. What's happening, what's exciting, who are the exciting persons there, which are the exciting startups there?
Yeah, it's grown incredibly in the last 10 years. So when I was talking about the accelerator that we founded, in those days, we were one of two accelerators, and there was maybe 3 like VC funds, and not necessarily focused on tech startups or internet startups at that point in time. There was a biotech fund. There was kind of some more generic venture capital firms, almost like private equity. And then there was like a hybrid US Australian firm as well. So and there was a bunch of ones that preceded that in the .com days. But yeah, the venture capital market in Australia 10 years ago was really tiny, and the accelerator market. And then all the activity in the last 10 years has just been incredible. I think there's something like 40 or 50 odd accelerators now in Australia, a bunch of private ones, some corporate ones, university-led accelerators. There's maybe 10 decent-sized funds now, and certainly kind of really successful ones like Blackbird, Square Peg, and Airtree Ventures. They're probably the big 3 in Australia. All have kind of over $200 million funds, and yeah, it's been amazing to see how it's grown, and so there's a lot more opportunities for entrepreneurs now in Australia than there was 10 years ago, and it's becoming increasingly good place to start up. Certainly, it's hard to compare it to Silicon Valley, but in terms of a test market for getting things going and getting your early funding, there's plenty of people to talk to nowadays.
Great. So, is the team working remotely or working from an office?
No, we were working remotely before all this happened. So we were working remotely by choice, but now it's
by force.
Exactly. Yeah, and we're spread out across Australia too. So Magda and I are both in Queensland, on the Sunshine Coast. Jason's in Melbourne. Some of our team are actually in Pakistan as well. So we are spread out around the world.
Right. That's awesome. So I guess there's a lot of questions from me. If you have any final comments or anything you want to ask me, go ahead.
Yeah, awesome. What's the startup scene like in Pakistan? I'm definitely interested because it's obviously an emerging economy, big population, young population.
So the startup scene is getting much better. Also, depending on how you define the startup scene, in the sense that we have a lot of companies which have tech teams in Pakistan, which have found Pakistani founders, but they started with some other market, primarily the US. And if you count those, so we already have three companies which crossed the $1 billion valuation. And then, just last week, we have one company which started from Pakistan, focused on the Pakistani market in the beginning for the first 4 or 5 years. They also, just raised some money and at a $1 billion plus valuation. So, and then there's some, new companies in the last year and a half in the logistics space, particularly, which have raised good amounts of money, like $7-8 million, $10 million, early Series A, within 6 months, 1 year. And so I think that cycle is also improving very fast. So so the company which has just become a $1 billion company is called the brand in Pakistan is called Zameen.com, but it's the group has a different name, EMPG or something, and they have property oriented online platform foundation. So yeah, so I think it's going great, and Pakistani founders are doing great. So Middle East has primarily two unicorns now, and both were founded by Pakistanis. One is Kareem, founded by Mudassir, and then Zameen, which is founded by these brothers, Imran. So yeah, doing well.
Yeah, awesome. And are there any ways to strengthen the ties between Australian and Pakistani companies? We've certainly got we've got cricket in common.
Yeah, no, I'm sure there are many ways. In fact, we'll have some follow-up conversations around this. You've been running an accelerator, and I'm sure you have a strong network in the Australian startup ecosystem. So I know a lot of people in Pakistan. So we'll figure something out to connect people from here to there, and both ways. So our startups can probably target the Australian market, and your startups could also get help from Pakistani tech talent, which I think you also mentioned that you're doing something with Pakistanis. So that combination can be interesting.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, we've been working with a team called Novacore Solutions, and Amir, the founder there, he's been a GoSave founder as well, and they have a fairly modest-sized team. I think they've got 30 odd people now, and so it's been terrific to work with, so I can see the advantages to more Australian companies. Certainly having an onshore team, but there's no harm in augmenting your team with other people from other parts of the world too.
Okay, great. Andrew and Magda, thank you for joining, and thank you for this amazing conversation. I learned a lot about the Australian ecosystem and about your startup. So I hope everybody else also enjoys it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you as well for inviting us. It's been a pleasure. And I think, what you are doing in Assembly Live, it's really cool to build up, the startup community to help out entrepreneurs from around the world. It's a great idea. But I also had one short question. How did you got involved in that? And what was from your background, how did you come to, to this realization that such a platform would serve a lot of people and would be?
So I've been involved in accelerators, incubators, and building startups, and has been my passion for life. So we were trying to build out an accelerator, a global accelerator where we'll work with startups from emerging markets and help them go international. And then COVID happened, and I was, working out of my room, and I thought this is really cool. You can actually get to know so many people so fast. Why do you have to travel to conferences? so this is like an alt conference business model.
Right.
I saw a tweet to that effect yesterday.
Innovation.
I saw a tweet saying something like that today, saying this crisis has weaned us off our dependency for face-to-face meetings and conferences, that we may never go back to them.
Yeah, no, I think there's value in sitting across a coffee table and having a conversation, and but I think that the value of these video conferencing tools is also gone up. Also because of the behavior shift happening for all of us, in the sense that previously we would be not be, in the sense that a large number of people would not consider them appropriate or necessary or useful, and now a lot more people are accepting the reality that since you're stuck at home and you need to talk to people, use video.
Yes.
Definitely.
Great. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Great talking to you, and we'll be in touch.
To you, to yourself.
Thanks, Shah.
Okay, bye bye.
Thanks, everyone.